Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Briggs, last year the Supreme Court obviously struck down the decision, but it seems that the EPA is completely ignoring it from your testimony and everyone's testimony here. And there are some examples of this. The EPA prevented Dan Ward, a farmer in Iowa, from building a pond on his land. Robert White from North Carolina filed a suit against the EPA because they are ignoring the rule of law from the Supreme Court and still regulating his land. So even though Sackett decision should be preventing the EPA from imposing these, they're still acting as if the decision doesn't exist. So the question is, what can we do? What can we do to ensure that the EPA is following the decision of the courts?
Well, you can pass a law codifying the Sackett decision. I think that would be helpful if it was in the statute. But I just want to take a minute because you mentioned specific instances of people being harmed. I don't think that I am exaggerating the impact that this is having on WAC members. I hear about people who have to walk away from projects, walk away from revenue for their small business, walk away from creating jobs in rural communities because of this regulation. And frankly, this is one of those regulatory rulemakings that makes the next generation of farmers not want to get in farming. So there is a real ripple effect here that I think folks are failing to acknowledge.
One of the issues that we faced in Missouri was that you have your state department that's enforcing a lot of the regulations because the EPA doesn't have the manpower or the resources to do so. So with a little bit of money, they influence and require the state resources to enforce them. In our state, it's the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. I assume that's the way it is in every state to some extent. And the question that I have is that what we experienced is that the EPA may not have a rule. They may not pass anything formally. They may not go through the rulemaking process. Sometimes they'll just issue a guidance document. That guidance document, the state enforces as though it's a rule, and yet no one elected to anything made a change. I don't know if you could comment on that.
Yeah, so thank you, Congressman. So the field memos that I mentioned in my testimony, again, they give you little bits and pieces about how they intend to implement this rulemaking. And I think if you take it all collectively, it's really a rulemaking hiding in plain sight. Like it has the effect of a rulemaking.
Right. And
the fact that that has not gone through notice and comment, it hasn't gone through stakeholder engagement, is really a problem. So the fact that they are taking these guidance documents and applying them as rulemaking is very concerning. But they will not hand over the implementation guidance that is being disseminated to the core districts. We know they exist.
Do you have to do a FOIA request for that, or?
This is the response we got. 1,123 pages, most of it is redacted. I will point you, and I'm happy to send this to you, to one page where they talk about, here is the implementation guidance that core districts should be using. Here's the SharePoint, and they black out the SharePoint. There is evidence in here where they say, do not share this with the public. Read the FOIA response. I'm happy to share it with the committee.
So there's no transparency at all. Ms. Pokon, I could see that you might have some thoughts on this, that how the states are being leveraged to be the enforcer for the EPA when there's no real actual laws or elected officials involved.
I'll say as a state agency that works with the EPA both in implementing the federal program but also in implementing our own, I haven't seen the guidance that was been provided to the Corps of Engineers, and so I don't know if when a permittee comes to our agency, if I need to issue them a state permit under state authority or if they should be getting a federal permit under the Section 402 program. And I think that while we implement the same water quality standards statewide, that can matter for a lot of different reasons. I might take a different enforcement approach with an entity if I have more flexibility and support them getting into compliance rather than having to act in a way where we fear that EPA is going to come crashing in over our shoulders and enforce over us. I also have more flexibility in adjusting specifics of the program in a timely way to support facilities that need to operate. When we have to send things to our regional office for approval, it can be quite a lengthy process to get something finalized.
Thank you. I yield back.
Ms.